Thanks very much, and I do believe not only I'm between you and lunch, but maybe you and going to the toilet, so I'm going to be really, really quick because I know it's been a long morning. Thank you very much to Scotland Excel. I'm going to run through a few things. I just want to touch on some of the points that were made this morning. Really good to hear about the heat transition, the heat support that's coming via Scottish Enterprise. Good to see that Scottish Government is trying to keep that finger on the pulse as things are changing and the skills demand and where we're going with heat pumps. Huge growth to come, massive, but not just us. Every other country in Europe is going after heat pumps. So there may have to be other technologies to come. Brief overview this morning, significance of innovation I'd like to touch on, supply chain development, quality and quantity, which is absolutely fundamental. And I'm going to be very boring and talk about waste, but more positively recycling, and you'll explain why at the end. We are on that fifth industrial revolution. You kind of think it was 250 years ago, roughly. We had our first industrial revolution. And just a few years ago, we were on Industry 4.0. You speak to most people in the world now, we're Industry on 5.0. We are now in this green age, and things are moving very, very quickly. And we're all part of it, and it's incredibly exciting, but also very challenging. We had the ZEST report, which came out. We're waiting on the Minister's response to that. But within that report, what it did say was that we should have archetype approaches. I absolutely agree with Neil Keatchin and others this morning. Let's not reinvent the wheel. There are 6 primary archetypes in Scotland in our existing housing that represent 80% of the stock. Do we need 145 RSLs to be each reinventing which solution they're going to use? Or do we demonstrate national technical guidance for the existing archetypes we have, building upon and accelerating the productivity and delivery, whether it's with air source heat pumps as part of that solution for that archetype, because there is tried and tested data that demonstrates that it works. But we really need to sort of pick up a pace. Sorry to be a bit hard. The fluffy times are over of us chatting in a room. We've really got to get on a pace. Unless we get that data, and unless we get it quickly, we won't be able to engage with Joe Public. Then I'd be a rich man for the amount of emails and correspondence I have from Joe Public who ask me and others, what solution should I put on a tenement? What solution should I put on my 4 in a block that I have? Because there is no currently centralized resource for Joe Public to engage with the archetype of the house that they live in and the solutions which are available. So if that was to come soon, I think that would really help with public engagement. There will still be variations between homes, but I think the solutions which are out there now are a great step forward, but even what's to come down the line is even more exciting. So if we can align with those archetypes, that would be very good. And data will be key. Now, back in 2002, the construction new build sector in England and Wales had almost the same issue, but a completely different area of insulation. It was sound insulation, a brand new criteria nobody had ever used before. They had to produce roughly about 180 to 200,000 homes a year with this brand new criteria, and nobody knew what to do and how to build it to deliver that step change in performance. So they collectively together, through all the major house builders, brought the 119 supply chain committee members together over 5 working groups, and in 1 month, we agreed the criteria and the direction of travel. Within 6 weeks, we had archetype solutions for each of the new build sectors. 6 weeks later, we had 72 construction sites with 1,400 homes being built with the new designs, and 6 months later, they were all built, we had the data, and 2 months after that, a guidance document was produced. Since then, 1.4 million homes have been built in the UK with this systematic archetype approach. So it can be done. Energy is more complex. But we've done this before, and the industry has responded. And we need to have that backtrack of data. We actually thought back in 2002 that new criteria would actually be just we produce a handbook and that's it and we walk away. But the government and industry wanted innovation as a pathway of entry as innovation would come through. And so as a result, what's happened is that handbook has been updated in guidance every single year. So there's a real chance to deliver on this, and it's been done before. There's new technologies and innovation coming, which is very exciting. We're already aware of SunAmp, but round the corner and over this winter and next summer, you're going to hear a lot more about an organization and a company called Heatwave. And this is a microwave heating technology. You can see by the scale of the size of the box on the top right there, that's relative to the SunAmp next door. It's a very simple system, but the prototype trials will be coming out over this winter across the UK, and it's UK-backed. So when we look to what's coming, we've got to keep the innovation window opening. We've got to still plow on with some of the air source heat pumps and ground source heat pump solutions where we know where they work well with archetypes. But we must also look at the embodied carbon. We currently look at net zero just now on the operational carbon. How long will it be before we will have to include the full embodied carbon? And then will some of the solutions and approaches we take now still be relevant in 10 years' time? What we can do is work what we've got just now, but be aware of the embodied carbon delivery to come. And I'm very grateful, and I want to mention the college and FE sector. They have been at the forefront of so much of the training for so many systems, working with suppliers, thanks to Mitsubishi and others that have provided those bits of equipment. And that accelerated a lot of the training which came in. But you consider how many people will need to be trained to come. We need to up by threefold the number of electricians that we're currently training in Scotland and double the number of plumbers that we currently have. I know it's nice and sexy to say it's green skills and green jobs, but actually some of the greenest jobs we have are in plumbing and electricity. When we go into schools and we say to parents and others in their evening classes when the kids are choosing what subject, did you know that the salary that an electrician is on? Did you know the salary that a bricklayer or a roofer is on? The parents are blown away. They didn't realize the salaries that some of these people are on, nor that there's a 25-year trajectory of guaranteed work. So I absolutely agree with the point made earlier. The operations of what we do in STEM, both college and university, but also schools at a younger age with DYW, could transform and change the diversity and support that workforce to come. The targets are significant, so apologies, Scottish Government. I'm going to look at the national level, not only in Scotland, UK, but actually where we get to for 2045 or 2050. Roughly, it's about 113,000 homes per year will need to be retrofitted in Scotland, 850,000 per year in England, and Europe must deliver 11 million homes to be retrofitted every year to hit the target of 2050. And we're all going after the same synergetic materials, components, and systems. Now, there's a general feeling that as demand rises, price rises, but the general feeling is also, as more things are coming onto supply, that price will stabilize. The likelihood is we may go through a period over the next few years where so many countries implement their low-carbon strategies that that price will fluctuate. And we need to be ready to engage with Joe Public, who's already struggling with heating bills, to inform them that some of the systems that are coming they may need to install, the price may rise. So that early action by Scotland, early action by UK government and others will help reduce that. But it's a huge pace of change, as you've seen here, and the earlier dates in Glasgow and Edinburgh, having that typical M8 competition, both went for the same year for net zero. Great to have a challenge. We need cities to step forward and be ambitious, but wow, what a challenge that is to come. A couple of quick points on import-exports. It's desperately important, absolutely agree with others like Neil Kitchen this morning, and also why the Innovation Centre, or BEST, is doing what they're doing. We need to reduce that balance of trade. Over the last period, over the last 10 to 15, 20 years, the balance of trade in the UK, specifically in relation to construction products and specifically in relation to building services engineering, fans, pumps, heats, radiators and boilers, that balance of trade is now 1 billion negative to the UK economy. That's how much we're importing. So it's great that we're manufacturing, we're creating those jobs in Scotland, but we have a lot more to do. And the more we can strive to deliver more innovation and products in Scotland, the better the outcome overall, not just for us, but for UK as a whole on the GDP. But it's an interesting period that we're going through, and the likelihood is that gap between imports and exports will get bigger in the next few years before it gets smaller. So just to kind of finish off towards the end, I'm really interested in waste, or I like the positive, recycling. This graph here represents the SEPA data, the Scottish Environment Protection Agency, of the waste reduction in Scotland as a result of recycling. This is the reduction in materials going to landfill. And it's tremendous. It really is. And you can see back in the early 2000s, there was that sudden drop in about 2006-07 onwards. The primary reason for that was the UK government announced that the landfill tax back in 2005, they said for the next 3 or 4 years, we will be increasing the landfill tax significantly on waste. And that really inspired a lot of people to say, we better sort this out, because people had done that handkerchief calculation and realized the cost of going to landfill was going to be so significant. So across the board, and the local authorities and the work that they did on household waste really drove down waste, which is brilliant. And construction actually does an incredibly good job. And that might sound strange, because roughly about 50% of all waste that goes to landfill is from construction. But there's a catch. So here is the current flows of waste data in Scotland from different areas, but I'll take you into something slightly more interesting, which is Here you can see on the circular diagram, that's the construction waste there, 50.7%. You've got your household waste, and also you've got commercial. Now let's take that blue half of the circle and break it down to what really is the construction waste that's going to landfill. Now it's not to say that there isn't waste going there, but the vast majority of construction waste that goes to landfill is through categorization, soils. 73% of our waste stream from this sector is soils. Now that's not to say we're perfect elsewhere. We still need to and must reduce the waste in these other areas, but this sector has reduced by 50% and more so over the past period the amount of waste that was going to landfill. The amount of take-back policy on plasterboard, chipboard, other wood waste, etc. has all helped. The work by Zero Waste Scotland to promote and continue this activity of how the sector takes back waste, brilliant, or we reduce waste and embodied carbon. However, here's my, the Sean moment, the negativity. Hang on a second. We want to avoid this. Roughly 25% of our future economy is sitting in this room relative to the framework contractors' work that will come over the next 20, 25 years. Therefore, potentially, the amount of waste that could come from the sector could be 25%. You generally find that waste has a higher recycling content when it's from large sites and major contractors. The smaller the site, the higher the waste proportion that goes to landfill. So if there's one thing we absolutely want to get done right on our waste retrofit program is to absolutely ensure that we are thinking about it's zero waste, absolutely as much as we can. So people ask, have you got a waste management plan in place? I don't really like waste management plan names, sorry. I like, what's your waste reduction and recycling? Let's turn it into a positive. It's a bit like climate emergency. We should be maybe calling it new air. You know, this is future air we want to breathe. Let's avoid those mixed waste skips, please. Let's use bagging and systems to sort the waste. And if we can, speak to your suppliers. If they don't have a policy on offcuts for your waste, ask if not, why not? So, the importance of data, just to finish off, will be incredibly important. We need evidence-based approaches for our retrofit program across the architects. That will help drive innovation. It will allow the government to track not only EPCs, which we know don't really reflect the energy, but it will allow them to track what is the real energy performance that's going on these buildings as a result of the retrofit, and what are the carbon reductions, what's worked well, what didn't work well, what's the learning profile, and how do we accelerate that further. The pathways to entry for innovation must be left open and must be readily available for the technologies to come and for Scotland and Scotland PLC to be part of that journey. Our supply chain development will be ultimate, and I don't want to repeat what many others have said this morning, but let's get more people into the skills agenda. And it could be short courses like BEST is doing. It could be also short courses like some of the colleges are doing beyond just the standard apprenticeship. Quality and quantity, society will expect us to do well, and they won't forgive us if we get this wrong. We won't get another chance to go back into people's homes and say, well, you know, 5 years ago it didn't work, so we're coming back and we'd like you to move out for 2 weeks while we totally retrofit your home. We have to get this right, and we have to take the public with us. And we must not lose the argument on social media, which unfortunately some technologies currently are losing that argument in social media just now. So we have to be in the front foot with the data, the positivity, and what works, and be honest. If something doesn't work, let's retry and refresh. If we could absolutely minimize waste reductions, I would be delighted. Let's handle this whole system and sector with care and look after those communities that we serve. If I could steal Scottish rugby, the hashtag #AsOne, but I love the Scotland to be hashtag #AsOne for retrofit. Thank you very much. Questions,